Hello, everybody. How are you?
Good.
I can't hear you because you've been muted, and we're going to keep it that way for a while. If any of you participated in our Aviation Career Week workshops, we're taking a very similar approach today. So less of me and Eric, up to which I'm sure you're applauding, and more of our guests and the topic at hand. But a bunch of you are new to Pathways to Aviation. So in the spirit of what we do every week, welcome to Pathways to Aviation. We are a nonprofit organization with one mission, and that is to get you or guide you toward amazing careers in the aviation or aerospace industry. We do that a number of ways. One of them is through these workshops where you listen to us talk about career planning. We bring in guest speakers like the ones we have today. You hear their stories, and then you can connect with them offline. You can connect with them through the chat program, chat portal, and ask questions during the workshop. So we connect that way. We also connect you through our career readiness portal. We have designed a special certification process. We launched it on May 9th, I think. And the idea was to reach students and job seekers who are interested in the aviation aerospace industry, but may not be all that prepared in terms of their readiness for an interview. They may not have a resume or know why they're pursuing the industry or have an elevator pitch or know how to network. We guide you along through some video training, some information, certainly one-on-one mentoring, so that you can get to that point where you are ready to succeed in that job interview. At the same time, we're bringing employers in to meet you directly. So rather than you having to comb through all the online websites to find jobs, we're actually doing that for you as you're going through the process. Because as you go through the process, we can see what your career interests are. We can see what your soft skills are. We have reviewed your resume. So we have a pretty good idea at that point as to what you're seeking, perhaps where you're seeking to move or stay located if you want to stay in your town, so that we can connect you to those employers. If you're in middle school, of which a couple of you are in middle school, or in high school, we'll help guide you towards either straight to the career or to college. And that's actually what our topic is for today, is your roadmap. Do you need a college degree to find great jobs in the industry? Or with a degree, what can you find? And so we have brought on guest speakers today. Right now we have two of them. We're hoping that a third comes in, but we have two of them today. I don't have their bios, so they are going to introduce themselves. And the reason why we don't have their bios is because we want them to share from their heart their career journeys. So, and it could be, you know, when they the first idea of aviation was planted in their brain, and the path that they took toward where they're at now. We want to hear their journey. If they went to high school, if they went to college, if they earned certifications, jobs along the way, what they've learned, where they failed, where they succeeded, what they're doing now. And then we're going to throw a few questions at them. Hopefully they're prepared, because if they're not prepared, you then get to ask questions when we open up the bank of any kind you want. Any type of aviation industry question. It can be about careers, can be about what you want. I just hope that they're ready. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna start with.
I think they're gonna throw scared them away.
Yeah. So Josh, we're gonna start with you, if that's cool. So
Sure.
Like 5 minutes, Josh, of who you are and how you got here.
Okay. Thanks so much for the opportunity. This is fun stuff. So I'm going to take it back. The guidance you gave me last night was from high school on, but my journey started actually in 5th grade, and I'm going to make a plug for my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Barbetta Sort, who she was actually in the running for the Teacher in Space program. Unfortunately, that the events there didn't turn out so well, but she was part of that cohort that actually interviewed for that. And I was kind of a troublemaker in grade school, and she gave me the opportunity to, if I had finished all my classwork, to go out and work on these NASA STEM projects, which they weren't called STEM back then. They were just some NASA projects and building rockets and airplanes and stuff. She introduced me to she was a member of the Civil Air Patrol. And a couple of years later, it stuck in my brain, and a buddy of mine and I went to one of these meetings and to see what that was about. And through the Civil Air Patrol, we got orientation rides, so free flying, paid for by the Air Force. And as Dave Miner, he was the pilot. The first time I'd ever been in a small airplane, we were taking off runway 26 out of Stead. And I remember looking down. I was in the front seat, right seat, and I remember looking down and lifting off the ground and thinking, "This is super cool. This is what I want to do." So, fast forward a little bit. As I learned more, I aspired to go to the Air Force Academy. So I took all the AP classes and stuff in college to get there. My grades weren't all that great, so. And I didn't have any outside athletics, so it was a challenge. I didn't get into the Air Force Academy the 3 times I applied, but at the airport, they had this organization called the Air National Guard. And so I went and I talked to them, and I found out this is like the Air Force, and it's local, and I can do it part-time. And so I joined there, worked my way through college. They paid for just about all my college, I think a couple lab fees, but got my bachelor's degree, worked part-time there. I worked at Mercury Air Service, the precursor to, well, it was on the west side of the airport at the time, and then Reno Air. So I did that, went to college, and eventually got commissioned. The unit converted from F4s to C-130s, and I got a pilot slot, went to pilot training, and did that for, for 23 years total in the Air National Guard. And then concurrently, I had a financial services background. I was an insurance salesman, a stockbroker. So I was able to balance both of those between international conflicts and when I was at home. Went out, did some other stuff, transferred to the Air Force Reserve, and now I'm at Beale Air Force Base. I'm a KC-135 pilot and a soon-to-be graduated squadron commander. So I think Greg's on the call, and I think the KC-135 is his favorite airplane to fuel off of with the Iron Maiden. He may have some feedback there, but I got 59 seconds left. I yield the floor.
Wow, I didn't even have to cut him off, Pete. That was awesome.
No, we were getting ready to gong you, but you're good. Cool, thank you. We're gonna reserve questions until later. We're actually going to have a batting order change. Our next batter is actually going to come on, he thinks, in about 40 minutes. He's got a situation he has to resolve. So we're going to now turn it to Phil. Phil, describe yourself.
Sure, thank you. And Josh, that was great. I'm a big 135 fan myself. I live just south of March Air Base, and I got KC-135s and C-17s over my house all day. So
I was just down there for the sim about 2 weeks ago. So yeah. Other than getting there.
Now I'm mad at you for not reaching out. So remember, next time you're at March.
I will.
I've been inside the house for 3 months, so
all right.
get out.
All right.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Phil Derner. I'm the Western Regional Representative for the National Business Aviation Association. I handle 7 states for NBAA. A lot of it is advocacy. There's some lobbying work that I do. I do a lot of workforce development projects, working on different events, public speaking, airport issues, airspace issues, all different kinds of things. For someone who's got to protect his head from the sun, I wear 7 hats or so for NBAA. A little bit of everything that we do. I represent all NBAA interests in these states. I live in Southern California, as just said. I've got any state that touches the Pacific Ocean, including Alaska and Hawaii. as well as Nevada and Arizona. It's a pretty cool job. If I'm not, I'm home based, but otherwise I'm usually, outside of COVID, on the road at least half my time. It's a great job, greatest job I ever had. I get to shake hands with some amazing people. Sometimes I look around for some not nice people because I'm just, it's just always amazing how awesome our industry is. Like, there's got to be someone who's just a jerk or something. So it's great. I've been very fortunate through my career. Before this, I owned my own business for about 14 years. It was a consulting organization. Started off as a website, unintended to even become a business, but it grew into something that was pretty fun. Did consulting work for the news media and for television production, like TV documentaries and such like that. That was pretty great. I've got about 13 years of experience working in aviation operations, mostly as a dispatcher. That's where my certificate is. I was an operations controller. I was also a load master for a military charter company for a little bit. For about a year and a half, I did that. But military charter, major airline, public charter, private charter, I bounced around the industry a lot. And a lot of people say, hey, where'd you get your master's and stuff like that? They see the guy in a suit and that's doing the public speaking. I grew up in Queens, New York. I moved out to California about 4 years ago. I don't have a college degree, not much less a master's. I went to community college for a little bit in Queens. And if you follow me on Instagram, you just saw a photo yesterday that I posted of me working throughout my early 20s at a bar. I was a bouncer for years and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I always loved airplanes. I grew up across the water from LaGuardia Airport, and I didn't know what my career was, because one thing that, we still see in our industry these days are people who don't realize what their career options are. I thought, well, if I don't want to be a pilot, what else could I really do career-wise? I didn't know what else was out there. I didn't want to live my life on the road so much. And granted, I travel a lot these days, but I didn't know what was there. And all I knew is that I liked airplanes. And through a friend, I was able to get a job interview at North American Airlines doing military charter stuff. And, one day I was just reaching out to a friend, and 3 weeks later, I'm in Kuwait and looking around like, this is crazy. What am I supposed to be doing here? And it's been a wild experience, and I don't know if my path was the right path, or it was an unexpected one, but it was still one that required that I work very hard at. While I worked in aviation operations all those years, I had a second job, my own business in aviation all those years as well. I may not have a degree under my belt, but I built up a robust resume. I think it's about the tool belt that you can build for yourself, and having the job doesn't mean that I'm building my resume with this year to this year with this job. There are other sections of your resume that you should be building constantly. And I'm always looking to build that and build up my tool belt so that when I go into a job interview or whatever it is I'm seeking, I can say, I can do this, I can do that. I've got this strength over here. I can accomplish this. And these are all the reasons that I can prove otherwise. I've overcome the need for a degree so far. And to be honest, now I've gotten to a point where if I want to progress a little bit more, at least in a structured organization, I need to start looking into formalizing my education, unless I want to go back into entrepreneurship. I could retire from my job right now and stay here. This is an amazing organization. I'm the luckiest guy in the world, but this wasn't a defined path for me. Even as I went, I was just kind of always looking for what's that next adventure, if you will. What's coming up next for me? And when I moved out to California, it was the same thing. A lot of this was new. All I knew was that the steps that I was taking, a lot of people, they think about their end game and they look at everything else as a stepping stone. You've got to choose some enjoyable and useful stepping stones. Those stepping stones should be awesome too. Every job I've had has been very good, and I've been very lucky to work for some great companies, but I think that the stepping stones are just as important. It's not just about the end game. And yeah, I've been the luckiest guy in the world to get to do what I love in so many different ways. And I sometimes I don't know how I was able to do it, but I would like to think that I've worked very hard and have made the right connections and networked with the right people. And now here I am on a panel with folks like Josh and all these cool folks that I've come to, like I said, be lucky to shake hands with all these people. This is an amazing industry. And I think it's it's your oyster. You do what you do what you can and what you want with it. So college may not be for you, but that doesn't mean you're taking it easy. You've got to, the hard work doesn't stop. But I don't know how many minutes that was, but I'll leave it about there unless you've got some follow-ups.
Well, my reaction is, Josh and Eric, has Phil been on this show before? Has he been part of these workshops?
Well, the funny thing is, I was just thinking, it's like he just gave a summary of the workshops we've been doing since April 8th. I'm just like, I think he covered networking, he covered, working hard. I mean, good golly, I don't know. We might have to recruit him and bring him in here.
Well, and we titled this workshop Your Roadmap, but your roadmap could go all over the place in circles, and I know my roadmap has, and so thank you for sharing that. Josh, thank you for sharing your story. Both are unbelievable. And I know Chris, if he's able to come on, he has a pretty cool story too. But I'm gonna start firing questions at you. And if anybody else has a question they want to have answered, whether we can do it on this call or afterwards, throw that in the chat and we'll see if we can hit it. But right off the bat, you both know the industry pretty well. What jobs are out there that exist today, or when we hope things recover, that are suited for those who may not have a college degree?
Josh, you first.
So like I'd mentioned, and I'll just speak from what I know. The enlisted career paths, there are flight opportunities there as well, where you don't need a college degree. You need some working knowledge. So a flight engineer or a loadmasters, typically you'll interview, but typically you don't need a college degree to enter that career field if you want to fly as an aircrew member. Flight engineer, typically you need a maintenance background in order to get there because of the technical nature of it. But you can also, depending on, there's an ebb and flow in the industry as well as the military. I think with COVID, I think the Air Force is getting healthy now because all the people that were doing their commercial job are coming back. So I think the Air Force is healthy, but there are opportunities there when there's a trough in the Air Force pool of pilots. Typically, the requirements are relaxed. So there are times in the Air Force history where you didn't need a degree to go fly an airplane. So, but there are opportunities available, and absolutely what Phil said, you've got to enjoy the steps along the way too. So if I had spent my whole career turning wrenches, I would have been happy doing that too, because it's just fun it's fun to work on airplanes. It's fun to be around airplanes, and talk about airplanes. So
Sweet. Phil?
I think if you don't enjoy the steps along the way, you can easily burn out and kind of lose your motivation toward that end goal. Sometimes you got to, go through a tough job and a challenging job, but you've got to find the best in that. And remember the value of why you might be doing that, some of those tougher jobs, go out there and, sometimes working the ramp and getting dirty and working when it's, I've worked, minus 30 in Kyrgyzstan. I've worked in 135 in Qatar, Fahrenheit. And, sometimes you got to do some of that stuff. And it's all a part of the journey, and I think that's super important. When I think about careers that don't necessarily require a college degree, I think about being a dispatcher, that's a certification you get, being a mechanic, and especially on the corporate aviation side, Part 135 operations, a flight department or a charter operator. Part 135 doesn't require a dispatch certificate. Now, I would caution you with saying that doesn't mean you don't go and get one, because dispatchers on that side of the industry or on this side of the industry are they're doing all kinds of things, running the whole operation. It's a very small and intimate show. I love working in that small environment because you're doing so much. The airline side does require a dispatch certificate, but neither actually requires that you go to school. you still may need to allocate resources to get that certification. There's so many different options there. But if you want to get into something like managing an operation, as you climb through management at any kind of company, it's important that you have something that, some kind of business background or business training, which you would seek a college education for. There's a time for that. These are all tools based on where you want to go. And like I said, I'm at the point where I'm looking into getting my degree and then hopefully going further beyond just a bachelor's, thinking about what I want to do next. And like I said, I can stay in my current job and I can retire from it. And I'm not 40 yet, but I have a role where I could easily, no one's had my job and not retired from it. And I could stick around and put my feet up if I wanted to, but I have no intention of doing that. I'm not looking to leave my job. There's no promotion I'm necessarily looking for, but I'm not going to sit here and stop growing because I don't know what's going to happen with the next COVID, the next industry downturn. I need to have that tool belt ready because the moment I slow down, the people behind me are going to start passing me up, So I may not have gone to school yet, but I've been building stuff along the way. So mechanic, dispatch, anything in operations. And even if while you're getting your dispatch certificate or while you're getting your AMP to be a mechanic, go work at the FBO, go pump gas, get that out. That's experience that's under your belt. You get multiple forms of experience and knowledge under your belt at once. Almost any career, there are very few careers in aviation that truly require a college degree, but there are also many that will give you value from that.
Perfect. I like it.
Hey, Pete,
Okay.
we got some questions coming in. You want me to roll?
No, we're going to go to the next one, then we'll get them after those.
Okay.
We might have a couple. I'm already coming up with more questions in my head, but all right, you guys both are in the industry, and I know you see it from different angles. And we've got this funky turn in the industry right now, well, every industry, when it comes to hiring. What are you guys seeing now? And are you seeing any trends that could appear post-COVID in terms of companies hiring anybody, whether they have a college degree or not?
I think that this is a time that we look for innovation and the ability to adapt. I think that survival of the fittest is about how many push-ups you can do, but it's about how can you adapt to a changing and different environment. And even for me in my role, my bosses came to me and they said, hey, while you're working at home, there are other projects. Now I'm managing, or I'm a producer for webinars that MBA does twice a week. They teamed me up with someone, and that's a new project because they knew that I had some experience with production in the past. Hey, Phil might be good at that, and that increases my own value. It helps me contribute to my organization while we're going through this. I mean, no one that's alive right now has seen this. So the ability to adapt and be ready for things and have all that different stuff under your belt, building your resume with things that are outside of just what's in your job description is vital. So continuing to grow your resume, and my resume isn't just for applying for jobs. I should have a resume that I could tape to the wall and look at and be proud of every single day when I wake up. That resume is much more than that, and I look at my resume and I see memories. I think of friends that I haven't gotten to see in years. I think of the mentors that have helped, that have stuck their neck out to help me out along the way. And I would be nothing without some of these amazing people. And then I think, how can I be that one day for someone else in their career? Because that mentorship ladder has rungs down and up. I think of all that stuff. And that's what a resume is. That's, someone that's hiring me knows that they're getting someone who's well networked, someone who is capable of different things, someone who's versatile that can handle different situations and be ready for, even without COVID, our industry has ups and downs. It is a cyclical industry. You've got to be ready for the downs. What are you going to do when there are furloughs, when there are layoffs? This will happen. You can't just say, well, I hope it doesn't happen before I get some seniority. You can't have that mentality. So continue to find the value in yourself, build the value in yourself. That's what people are going to be hiring based upon. And COVID was the biggest slap in the face for companies that maybe were not hiring like that before.
Right.
So while you're going to school, go work at the FBO, go pump some gas, load some bags. I've done it, and it's, it's meant everything for me.
So Phil, what you're saying is invest in yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, believe it or not, and get a full night of sleep too. I just recently learned in my new job that how much more productive I am if I sleep more than 4 hours a night.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
self-care.
Eric, you gonna let me sleep?
Yeah, they do.
Awesome. Josh, any comments before I get to the next question?
Just to kind of echo what Phil said, and I'm actually going to address a little bit on one of the chat questions, but you need to be ready when this thing turns around. The age restrictions of the airlines, it's still 65, so those retirements are going to happen. I think it looks a lot different than it did pre-COVID, the industry as a whole. But I don't want to get off on that and on that rabbit hole and right now. But if you're going to pursue an aviation degree or aviation ratings, it might be a good idea to hedge for the downturns with something else that is not aviation centric. So if you have an interest in business, if you have an interest in something else that you can diversify your portfolio, so when you get furloughed, hopefully it doesn't happen, but it will, you have somewhere else to go and something else to do. And those skill sets, they're transferable and they overlap. You can't compartmentalize a skill set you learn, say in a business program, and not have it flow into your aviation career as a value add. So that would be my 2 cents.
And if I can add one thing, like a lot of people they're stuck at home. Maybe they're not going to work anymore. They're not physically going to school anymore. Their commute time is yanked out of their day. They've got more time at home, more time to themselves. And these are challenging times, between what we're seeing with all kinds of things that are going on in our country, around the world, with COVID and everything these days. These are emotionally challenging times. It's a great time to do meaningful work. It's tough to be down on yourself when you're accomplishing meaningful work. And I don't have it on my desk right now, but I've got a stack of books. I have an English book, actually. I'm restudying English right now. Like, I'm not going to stop learning things. I make stupid mistakes in my writing and sometimes in my speaking. And this isn't a time to sit still, learn, spend $180 and go get a masterclass subscription. It doesn't matter if it's cooking, it doesn't matter what it is. And I've been doing masterclass stuff, and that's pretty awesome too. All of these things, take advantage of this time, because like when you graduate high school, you're never going to have a summer vacation again. You're never going to have 2 months off between school years where you can kind of go play. Some of us have a lot of extra time right now. Grow. Because a lot of other people are putting their feet up and they're sitting there, and some of them are feeling sorry for themselves. Send them a note, make sure they're okay, and help them put a smile on their face, but then invest in yourself right now. This is a great time to learn.
That's great advice, because ever since it began, we've been coaching students to pick up a new skill.
Exactly.
Our Michelle Scholarship recipient decided, well, in addition to interning at 2 different companies, he's going to learn C+ programming. I don't even know what C+ programming is. My kid does, but this kid decided to pick it up. So it's a better way, again, Josh, diversify yourself, grow.
Yep.
You have something to fall back on. So great advice from both of you. Okay, last question that I have. Whether a young person is a year or 2 or 5 from going for an internship or a first career job, or an individual is ready now, do you have any recommendations to make that happen?
Right.
And you guys already touched on a few.
Josh? I'll
ask for the interview.
I couldn't have stumped you. You guys got these questions yesterday.
You've got to ask for the interview. So if you're hesitant, even if you're not ready, ask them, and they'll tell you no, hopefully politely. Come see me when you've filled this box or learned this skill set. And yeah, you will not get 100% of the jobs you don't ask for. So anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And I think job interviews are the greatest networking opportunities that you can have too. You know, getting some FaceTime with the hiring manager, they may look at your resume and they may know, and I've been in the position where I look down at a resume before they walk in. I'm like, oh, I don't know, this is a hard sell. But I meet them and I'm like, hey, you know what? If you can go and do this, you come back, I'll give you this job. I'm glad we met today, you know? And a rejection from a job is an opportunity to learn, to figure out how to fill in the blanks. This is don't get down on yourself with any of this, because you're on the path. You're in that person's mind. They're going to remember you one day. And then you send a follow-up email, a quick message on LinkedIn every half a year or something like that. You know, and I think networking is it. You know, granted, I work for MBA. We do conventions and conferences, but go to events. It doesn't have to be a business one, but there are social aviation events. Go and network yourself around. Go shake some hands. Go find people on LinkedIn. Find people that you want to be your mentor. You don't even need to know them to be mentored by people. You can monitor people's career on LinkedIn and just learn from them. What are people that I admire doing right? Because all your role models aren't perfect. So choose what they're doing right and follow the right things. Don't pick up their bad habits, but networking is number one, you know, and you should be networking, you know, from day one at school. What professors should I know, you know, so that when you graduate, you can say, hey, you know, thank you so much for teaching me the last few years. Who should I talk to? Can you refer me to someone to get this job interview? You know, networking is everything. And if it weren't for my outward annoying extrovert self, I wouldn't have been able to have other people open doors for me.
That's awesome. Eric, again, I think this guy stole our career playbook.
I lost count at about 15 when network got mentioned that many times. And I totally agree. Sometimes those best interviews that we have are the ones where we learn the most from what we need to do next. But it's just staying out there, guys, and getting connected. So, both of you guys did a fantastic job. Great.
Yeah, and I'm going to pick on something Josh said.
But can I make a question, Pete, first? Where were these guys 30 years ago when I was looking?
Exactly.
Come on, man.
Different industry for both of us.
Apparently.
But Josh mentioned something, and it reminded me that one of the candidates who's usually on these calls, Robert, met tonight, one of tonight's speakers who's not here yet, on through this workshop program, decided to drive from Phoenix to Truckee, walked into Chris's office, striked up a conversation. He has a new job starting tomorrow. Just by walking in the door and saying hello. He struck up a conversation, got the job. And so a lot of jobs, and we mention this all the time, are not posted. The best jobs are not posted because by the time you see the job posted, there may be 100 or 2 others competing against you for that job. So if you make yourself known, hang out at the regional airport, just at the FBO or the terminal building, you know, kind of put yourself out there, be willing to talk. You never know. They're going to ask you to pull a plane or, you know, fuel a tank, and those things add up. When they see your work ethic and how you operate and the questions you ask, they're going to keep adding things to your list, even if you're not getting paid. Who cares? Because eventually things will hook up in your favor, and then there's a positive ripple effect. And who knows where that takes you? So
it's like asking out the prom queen or prom king. It's always like, well, no one asks me out. You know what I mean? Well, go. A lot of people are not doing the kind of networking that is oh so easy for you to do. You know, go and you don't have to be life of the party kind of person. It doesn't. You know, I get people who come up to me who are super shy. They're nervous. And I don't care. It's like, wow, well, thank you. It was great meeting you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Great. And then they send me an email. And you don't have to be the star of the show and put on a production. Just get to know someone. Just let them know your name and don't let them forget it, you know? So
we used to joke about how simple it was. All you got to do is say hi.
That's it. Starts everything.
You know, just start something. Yeah.
All right, Garrett, throw a question out.
Okay, let's see here. So from Dawson's got two, but I'll hit Dawson's, Anthony's, and back to Dawson's second question. So I'm looking to do inventing and design, possibly in the aeronautics field. How do I find out what the jobs for it look like, and how do I get there as a third-year college student? It's a great question. So inventing and design, right? And Dawson, what what degree are you getting, if I can ask you? If you're still, is Dawson still with us? There he is. Dawson, I'm going to unmute you. What kind of degree are you looking to get?
Right. So I'm still trying to decide, like I said, with the possibly aeronautical.
Okay.
Is that I know what I like to do. I like to figure out solutions, like to invent, like to draw things up. And so, I'm thinking between aeronautical, and I do, stuff for planes and spaceships and stuff, or, I do mechanical, and then I do like just more general stuff. So kind of want to, get a look at what does the career look like? Is this what I envisioned it? That sort of thing.
Fair enough. Guys, you want to field that, or you want me to jump in, or go for it?
Man, I mean, right away, I start looking for, and this may change as you go, but I think you should go to events, go to conventions. I don't want to keep pointing at NBAA, there are other ones too, but go to career fairs, go to places where a variety of businesses are. You might be interested in something like an aircraft manufacturer. It could be like a Boeing, an Airbus, a Gulfstream, a Cessna, all of these different companies, Dassault. And you go to these places and you start your networking and ask them, hey, I'm a student. I'm trying to think if this is my interest, what jobs do you have? And you go online and you find people on LinkedIn and shoot them a message. A lot of people will be ecstatic when just to get messages from someone that's curious about their company and about their career field. So go find some of those goal companies. Think about the kind of company that you might want to work for. If you're thinking space, I mean, would you want to work for JPL or something like that? Like that would be amazing. You can look through all of that. And they'll probably send you marketing material too. A lot of these companies, these big companies especially, they have marketing materials just for the careers that they have, big brochures, and they've got really cool photos. You're going to cut it up and hang up the pictures too. They'll send you posters if you ask for it, and you start to see the kind of companies, not just the role, but then the corporate culture as well. You can see that these people take pride in the jobs that they have. I would love to be around people with that kind of pride. Pursue that, because that's just as important. And so reach out to a variety of companies and ask them what their specific roles are. They may say, well, if you have these different engineer positions, we have design, we have passenger experience design, a team that does just this. And you start to learn the art behind some of it. It's not just, well, how many seats can we cram into this tube? There's so much out there. And each company approaches it differently. Some are just, we have engineers, they put this stuff together. Some are like, well, this is a valuable experience to us, and we have a team of innovative people. Go seek out some companies and you can ask them. And then you choose who you want to work for, and then you're like, well, how do I get there? And then figure out your stepping stones and try to have fun along the way.
I think that's great because, if you get a chance to get into those companies, it's asking, hey, let's do a job shadow. You need to explore if it's really something you desire. And I think Lee weighed in on this too. It says, your unmanned aerial systems, your drones, that's an industry that's just booming right now. And, we have Drone America and some of these others flirty in town. And I tell you guys, I'm here in Northern Nevada, for some of you that are, I know we've got a couple folks from back east from some Civil Air Patrol groups, but check out your local FBO, fixed base operation, and find out who what companies are there, what drone companies are there. And I love what Phil said. Go ask questions, and look at the culture. We mentioned this a couple workshops before, guys. Culture is everything. Are you a match for them? Are they a match for you? So that was great. Sorry, didn't mean to jump in there, but I figured it was a good thing to add. Josh, did you have anything to add to that?
I don't. It's outside my lane, that specific career field, but okay. Great idea.
I think with drones specifically, like you think, where's the future going? Play, make your own crystal ball and think about what's coming up. Drones are awesome. They're hot right now. Where are they going? They're probably going into cargo delivery. We've already heard about it. So reach out to Amazon, UPS, FedEx, and say, hey, find someone on LinkedIn or at some career fair and say, hey, I would love to figure out where the future's headed and what roles do you have? Get ahead of that. And they'll say, wow, this kid's thinking ahead. I'm a student. Once you say I'm a student, people are like, I've got a table right here for you, sir. Take a seat, that kind of stuff. So
I love that. One of the universities I always think about is Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. They've got their 3D printers down there. They've got they're doing all the testing for design, aircraft design, wing design, and something you start looking and exploring some of that stuff, and your mind just gets expanded tremendously.
yeah.
So yeah, Anthony asked that question. What are some of the good colleges with good aviation programs? Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University is probably one of the best in the country. They're all over the place. And what we'll do on that, Anthony, is we'll give you some specific colleges. I know that Pete's got a load of them, but ERAU, look at that. Look, see, he's there. Vanna's there. He just showed up with the thing. But we just placed, Pete, we just placed one of our Pathways candidates with Embry-Riddle, what, 2 weeks ago, a week ago?
Yeah, it's going to make me cry, but we're going to get him a full ride. So that's
Anthony,
our mission.
We'll follow up with you, Anthony, on some emails with that. And then, and here we got a pilot question. This could be Josh. Also had a question about being a pilot. I know there's an industry need, but wondering what the best path it would be. Is it commercial, Air Force, reserves, guard, especially while I'm working on college engineering? Great question.
Yes.
Wow.
So there are pros and cons to both, and Greg, a couple sessions ago, highlighted both the pros and cons because he has experience in both. I don't have a commercial background yet, but for me, I knew early on that I wanted to fly in the military, and it's a different kind of flying. So it really depends on what you want your day-to-day schedule to look like, what your money range aspirations are, and a caveat there is there's going to be some lean years, regardless of which path you go down. A lieutenant in the Air Force doesn't make a lot of money, especially with the kids. I didn't have any kids, but you don't make a lot of money early on. The airlines are aspirational. Those multiple six-figure incomes are for the typically for the 30-year captain they hucked bags. They did charter. They flight instructed for net $6 an hour or whatever. So yeah, it's a challenging road regardless, and there's pros and cons to both. The commercial route, if you go through Embry-Riddle or one of North Dakota, I think any of the aviation schools, it's an expensive bill. It's a $100,000 ticket coming out, and it takes a long time to pay that back. On the military side, you write a blank check. So they pay for it in dollars, but you also get to go to some very interesting places. It's funny, Phil, you mentioned Kuwait and Qatar, and I was going through my head. Oh yeah. Al Udeid and
yep.
also Al
Ali
Salam. Yeah, Al Salim. Yeah. But anyway, so it really kind of depends on what you want to get out of it in the end, and which path is best for you. But I'd be happy to talk about either one of those.
Yeah,
so.
The lifestyles are very different too, and I think it's also different for personalities. Some people want to have that airline kind of lifestyle. They want the flight benefits. So going for the airlines for them, and like Josh said, you get to the big dollar time. Those folks their careers have been weathered with at least a furlough or two. Be ready for those downtimes, a bankruptcy, and challenging. I think that a lot of mid-career pilots are not very cheerful these days, even before COVID, because maybe the internet wasn't around enough and no one really told them, hey, yeah, you can get to that, but it's going to stink along the way. You're going to have some some road bumps, some speed bumps there, and it's not going to be that easy. Some folks don't like dealing with people, so they want to go cargo because boxes don't complain, you know? And maybe if you're hypersocial and you love the whole passenger experience thing, maybe business aviation and corporate aviation is right for you, because you're the face. You're not just flying, but they're going to see you back there, and you get to welcome them and improve that passenger experience. And maybe you just want to, you know, I would get together for drinks with friends, and one guy's an airport manager, one guy's an airline pilot, one guy's a corporate pilot. Everyone's like, oh, how are you this week? Man, it was busy, construction at the airport all day. And then the airline pilot's guy, oh, mine was great. I went from LAX to Seattle 6 times back and forth. And then he loves it. And the other guy's like, I was sitting on my couch in my pajamas and I got a call to go to Glasgow and back. Oh, but I stayed in Glasgow for 3 days, paid for by the client. Everyone's kind of like,
Yeah.
all right, drinks on you or something like that. You know, like everyone's like, cool. You know, it depends on the lifestyle. Some people don't want to go to Glasgow for 3 nights. It's like, I want to maximize my time at home with my family and my wife, you know? Like, so there are different lifestyles and benefits. Some people just don't want the money as badly. I don't need the 300K. You know, I want to have the quality of life. I want to be able to sleep it with good circadian rhythm all the time, you know? So you choose what's best for you based on that, and go find mentor pilots in all those areas and learn from them.
Yeah. I'm going to let Greg weigh in real quick, guys, too, because Greg's got some background. Greg?
Yeah. Excuse me, I apologize for the lack of video. Agree with everything that's already been mentioned. In terms of the best path, there really is no best path. It's unique to everybody. As an example, and I know people who've been on calls before with me have heard this, I have a buddy I went to high school with who wanted to become an airline pilot. So did I, but I also wanted to go fly for the Navy. And so he went I won't call it traditional, but he went the civilian route, instructed at a few FBOs, got hired at a regional, eventually got hired at Delta, and he got hired basically around the same time I got hired at American Airlines, except instead I joined the military right out of college, went to flight school, started flying, and did all that. And now we're basically in the exact same place, just in different companies, obviously very different routes. You know, the big difference might be, you know, like the upfront costs. Obviously the military is paying you to go flying, vice you pay to go flying. But they tell you where to live, they tell you where to go. And just like in anything, you're not necessarily going to get your first choice. So Phil talked about finding a mentor in each thing. I would definitely say that is what you need to do, and find a couple mentors, and don't look at the best case scenario in each one. Also look at maybe guys who didn't do exactly what they wanted on that path and say, well, which one am I willing to accept? You know, what's the risk, if you will? I luckily got to fly exactly what I wanted to fly in the Navy. Now, would I have been as happy if I got my last choice of aircraft? Would I have rather gone the civilian route rather than fly my last choice of aircraft in the Navy? And, you know, I don't know, and I didn't have to make the decision. And it kind of scares me that I actually didn't think about that before I got started, and I lucked out. But if I could rewind this, I would also ask myself that question: is, hey, what is the best case scenario? And then also, if I got to really grind it out for a little while, which one am I going to be happiest grinding it out at, even though it's going to be trying? And there's going to be trying times regardless of what you do. And another thing I'll also mention is, obviously military tells you where to live, and you might go on deployments, right? I went on deployments for 10, 11 months up to a year. And, you know, but then I talked to my buddy who was a regional pilot or instructing at the FBO, and he had weird hours. He moved around too because of where he was based. And his time away from home, maybe it wasn't in a year-long block, but just like any other airline pilot, he was gone a lot, 3, 4, 5 days at a time. So it's not necessarily apples to oranges there. So,
no, and I think that's great because it gives, you know, again, for our candidates and our job seekers, it gives everyone an idea of there's different ways to, like they used to say, to skin a cat, and there's different ways to get to different things in aviation. And we have another good question here, Pete, from Jacob. He said, you know, we talked a lot about career planning and how to pick a path. But what are some of the basic skills, and I love this question, what are some of the basic skills that we can be learning at this time that might help start a career once we are trying to enter the aviation industry? What are some of the basic skills? I'll throw it back to our panel.
I think working with others, leadership when you have the people skills, that's a Lego that can link up with any other kind of block that's out there. It's good to figure out how to work as a team with other people, and how to work through problems without letting your emotions get the best of you, because aviation has to deal with emergency situations, and you need to be able to turn your brain off and operate on the programmed autopilot, or you turn your emotions off and operate with what you've been trained with and things like that. It can become stressful, and you've got to be able to manage that. And those are some of the skills I think that are very important. Teamwork is vital, and whether you're in dispatch, I mean, there's so many safety related roles in aviation. Many of them have some safety component to it, and you've got to be able to value that. But Josh, what do you think?
You got to unmute yourself there, Mr. Josh.
So I would work on your Zoom. I would work on your Zoom button pushing, and so I want to echo what Phil said. So when I was doing my master's MBA program, I would complain a lot to my wife about something that I in hindsight got the most value out of, but group projects are very frustrating, but they're the most fulfilling part of working with people, I think. In your education, if the opportunity to work with other people. Build your critical thinking skills. So the only difference between you now and you 5 years from now are the people you meet and the books you read. So read things that kind of sharpen that muscle, the critical thinking muscle. Be able to take, like Phil said, take the emotion out of decision making and be able to see different angles, different sides of a problem, and come up with creative solutions. I'm not the most creative person in the world, and but I endeavor to think critically about situations and to come up with the best solution. So.
Yeah, it's so interchangeable. It's such an most interchangeable kind of thing is the people skills, the teamwork, especially with everyone. Everyone has, 45-degree syndrome, looking down at their phones all the time. Many of us are not connected to other human beings, and the ability to develop those skills. And you could do that anyway, because people are like, well, that's not advice. How do I do that? Join a club, find a group, take on some kind of project, volunteer. There are any number of ways you can get out there and interact with people and work together on stuff. And that is something that will help you. And then if you're volunteering, you're doing this stuff, that should go on your resume. If you're attending conferences and conventions, put that on your resume. Here's an engaged person. This person goes out there and interacts with people. That person is going to be a part of my brand, going out and saying, I work for my company. I want that person who's going out there, who's networking themselves. That stuff is so, so important. And find the books, like diversify your knowledge. I didn't go to college, but man, I have got a stack twice my height of airplane books that I read along the way. I didn't have the internet when I was a kid too. There's this thing, it's a library, and they got books. But really, that's what I did. My aviation knowledge started with 4 books when I was as a child that got to my home, and they never saw the shelf again because I kept taking them out again and again and again when I was 6 and kept rereading them. Read, learn, study, and just diversify that knowledge, because then something's going to come up, and all of a sudden you're going to have something in your brain that you never thought you would use. So that's kind of what I think.
No, I love it. The books you read, the people you associate with, that's who you're going to be in a couple of years, and we can say the books you read, it's the stuff you put in here, guys, so no, that's excellent, guys. That's fantastic. Pete,
Hey,
I think we
Aaron,
questions.
we're at an hour,
Yes, sir.
but I still want to open up the bridge.
Okay, no, I'm good to go.
So if anybody wants to bail, go for it. But we want to open up the bridge like we do every week, and we can ask each other questions. We can rapid fire whatever. If you have a burning question, don't worry about the chat. Just ask away. We're here for you.
Yep, guys, and most of you, I've asked you to unmute, so you're gonna have to unmute yourself. But with Jacob and Dawson, I think we got most of their questions answered. And Anthony, guys, did we get your questions answered? Always got to ask.
Yeah, you got mine pretty much.
And Anthony, we'll get back to you on some of those schools too.
And Anthony, I have a list
Okay.
of 300+ schools.
There you go.
Okay.
And one thing that I wanted, we were talking about, you know, what about figuring out what kind of pilot do I want to be? You don't necessarily have to decide, I think. I think that's a big deal. You don't have to know right now. I didn't know that I wanted to be a dispatcher when I became a load master. I didn't know that I wanted to manage operations, mission control rooms when I became a dispatcher. I didn't know that I wanted to be a lobbyist when I started, but I knew that everywhere I was going to bust my butt everywhere that I was at, because opportunities presented themselves because of the reputation I built through that work ethic. And because I was going out shaking hands so much, you know, and then I can choose the opportunity that I want to follow, you know, just, you don't have to have all the answers right now. Just don't sit still. As I say that, sitting still.
That's why I'm standing.
Feet standing.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
So guys, we've opened up the bridge. Any other questions from our candidates at all?
So
Dawson, we're good. Go ahead, Dawson.
I know that it was said that in a previous call they talked about the differences between the different branches and pros and cons. So I was wondering if that was available somewhere, because I'm kind of looking to start that now, especially if it's National Guard, be it, you know, Army or Air National Guard. I kind of want to get that started so that that's, you know, congruent with my college classes, and I can, you know, finish that stuff up and have a decision sooner of what direction I want to be in.
Got it. Greg, you want to weigh in on that? Josh?
Because it sounds like a little bit more guard centric, I'll let Josh go with that, clean up the active side if necessary.
Go to the unit you want to fly for. Send them a letter, get them on LinkedIn, express an interest now. The building blocks are all the same. You're going to have to take the AFOQT. You're going to have to get, you're pretty far along in your degree already. You'll need to take a flight physical. I mean, there are certain squares that you have to fill regardless of which route you go. You need to ask yourself a lifestyle question too. There's an old joke that the Air Force and the Air Guard as a subset, we're America's alternative to the military, because we like our golf courses and our clubs and our coffee shops on base. But if you want to crawl around in the mud part of the time too, the Army might be the way to go. But and love my Army brothers and sisters, but there are distinct deployment cycles are drastically different between the two. And National Guard versus active duty, and then I'll hand it off to Greg. There are pros and cons to that as well. So, and actually, Greg can talk to the reserve side too, as a reservist as well, and balancing that.
Absolutely.
Go talk to the units.
The biggest so I'll reiterate the go talk to the units on the guard side for sure. We've got a lot of people who've actually transitioned from Navy to guard, and that was the biggest thing was talking to people at those specific units. On the reserve side of things for the Navy, most of the reserve units, although not necessarily all of them, are going to hire from previous active duty guys. So it's a little bit different from the guard in that sense. So I think one of the biggest differentiators is the lifestyle you're looking for, because if you definitely want to live in Reno, or you definitely want to live, you know, up in Klamath Falls, then you probably want to look at the guard units that are there. So if location is high on your priority list, I would lean that direction. Obviously, going the active duty side is a little bit more. You're committing to the full time with the time commitment that's going to be adhered to that, and you're really going to be your career from now. And it's not really going to be a part-time gig, at least initially. So I would just offer that if you are looking at the military, the first thing to decide is really, is location your highest priority, and kind of what does your time constraints look like? And then I think that'll easily make you either go the guard direction or go the active duty Navy side. But Again, the reserve side works a little differently, kind of hiring from within, if you will. I hope that answered the rest of that question.
Dawson, we cover that? We good?
Yeah,
Can
I think so. Because like I
Can I-
think. Go ahead.
Can I add something? There's no such thing as a free lunch. So if the military, regardless of which route you go, pays for you to go through their pilot training program, you will have a commitment. When I signed on, it was 8 years. I'm not sure what the Navy one was, but 10 years is not out of the realm. So just keep that in mind too. It's a long-term commitment.
Yeah, Navy was 8 years after receiving wings, and it took me about 2 years to get through flight school. So it was about 10 years before I could start making moves as well.
Good. That's great. And Dawson, what we'll do is Pete will get you guys connected with Josh and Gray just to continue those conversations. So you need to go. So we good, Dawson? That get it covered for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good, buddy. Good.
Hey, Eric, did somebody just join?
Yes, we had Mr. Barbera and we had Lieutenant Colonel Castanilla join.
Castagna.
Castagna, sorry, sir.
That's quite all right. I'm with the Civil Air Patrol.
I figured as much. Where are you guys hailing out of?
New Jersey Wing. I'm the Director of Aerospace Education.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. We've had your cadets scattered through a lot of our workshops, and we're happy to support you and help them out.
Great. Thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I was in the middle of something else, so I'll catch up, however.
Okay, sounds good. And Mr. Barbera, are you out there?
Hello, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Hey. How are you, Chris?
I don't think I can feel all right.
Yeah, it's good. So,
And same here. Sorry, I'm a kid urgent care trip.
yeah,
Oh, no fun.
sorry. Well, Chris, we'll have you back at another one of our workshops because I think we're just getting ready to wrap things up. Everyone okay, buddy? You guys are okay? Yeah, he must not be that.
So
Peter?
before we shut down, I'm going to put out an invite for anybody who's managing a CAP or has an EAA chapter or a school club or they manage an airport and they have a bunch of students, job seekers. I'm going to invite you to connect with me over the next week or two. I have an idea I want to bounce off you. It's something we've been putting together for a couple of weeks now that we are intent on pursuing, but I want to bounce it off you to see what you might think of it. So I may hit you by email, or if you want, just jump in and hit me. Just send me an email saying, let's connect. To everybody else, if you want to meet Phil, you want to get connected to Josh, or even Chris, put something in the chat or send me an email. We don't usually share private contact information on these calls. The way we do it is we connect you through email introductions. That way everything's private and nothing gets used inappropriately. But just send me an email or send me a note. Everybody has my email. So just send me a note and then we will get you connected.
Peter, a comment?
Please.
Yes, sir?
Yeah, again, I'm sorry I'm so late on this. The Civil Air Patrol, just within the last couple of years, has a big push for our cadets to earn their private pilot's license, to explore different careers, and even outside of the military. So if you would go to our general website, gocivilairpatrol.com, one word, on the cadet side, or if you just go to programs, under cadets, it's called Cadet Invest. And there's a whole litany of things about aviation scholarships. I'm one of the directors of a National Flight Academy. Our top guns from each academy are given a full scholarship to complete their aviation training. And the Air Force really has put a lot of money into the youngsters to enter aviation. So I'm just throwing that out. And again, however I can be helpful here in New Jersey, and I'm also on national staff, please contact me and hopefully I'll get the times right the next time you have a meeting here.
We'll get you. We're recording tonight, so you can show it to your cadets as well. but we'll be in touch. So thank you for that information. The guy above you, Eric Henry, is a former commander of our local CAP. So he's taught me almost everything that he knows, which isn't much, but
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
Really, thanks. Yeah, we're gonna end the call with that. Yeah, I need a horse running across the screen. That would be better for you, wouldn't it? Yeah, I know.
we now have 6 of them.
Yes.
So yes.
But great workshop, Marlis. I see you out there. Thanks for joining and always being available too. But guys, Phil, Josh, thank you guys for being part of our panel. It's much appreciated. And like Pete said, we hook everyone up, but we just don't do it here. We just do it privately for obviously a lot of reasons. And then Lieutenant Colonel, what we'll do is we're here to help your cadets too, planning their journey. And like Pete said, I've ran the squadron here in Reno I ran it for quite a few years, and I was part of the wing here too. So very familiar with CAP and all the opportunities. I'm really excited to see that the Air Force has really stepped up to provide private pilots opportunities for the cadets too. So that was exciting. Peter, what else we got, buddy? I think we're good.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
our next workshop is next.
Yeah, we got one next Wednesday. We're starting the conversation about resume writing.
Yes, we're going to start our resume writing. We're going to circle back through, guys. So excited to bring along our new cadets or candidates. So anyway, guys, I'm going to do the sign off. You guys ready? We're going to be gone in 3, 2,
Thanks
1.
a lot, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.